was $600,000? No, like 400,000. Only like 400,000. But we're gonna be looking through the eyes of Classic. It's Classic versus Euthermal. Euthermal or Liquid Thermi. One of the best Terran players outside Korea. Always a contender. I don't believe he's won anything recently. He's always like 3rd, 4th, round of 8. But I'm not exactly sure where we are in the tournament for this one. But we're looking at Classic. A lot of people were like, where's my Protoss guide? Or where's my Protoss first person or anything like that. So, in PvT, and Classic is... I don't know if there's an easy way to describe it. It's a little bit harder to describe Protoss players stylistically as compared to Terran players or even Zerg players. I mean, I guess you have just ridiculous timing-oriented Protoss players like SOS or Hero. Hero not so much as SOS, but still the same idea. And then you have the solid, safe macro players, who I think you could count like Neeb, Showtime, Stats in that list. Alright. So PvT, this is a gate expand here, the most standard play. Gets up the ramp, scouts. He didn't actually scout off a pylon. Some Protosses have been scouting off a pylon in order to really annoy a Terran player early on. Now he's just trying to block the command center. He actually forces Euthermal to place it a little bit off to the side. Looking around. A pylon at the front. And the intent here, what Classic's going to be trying to do is add some gateways, maybe a shield battery on. That's to create a wall to prevent Hellions and things like Cyclones from getting by. It's a bit of a trade-off, because if they do end up going for some sort of aggressive, maybe a tank push, then you can kind of be backed up against your own wall or behind it, and they can just take it down. But the real risk for Protoss early on isn't a later game tank push or something like that. The risk is a bunch of your probes dying early, too. Like a Widowmine drop, to a Hellion run by, to a couple Cyclones, and having that wall kind of reduces the possibilities that a Terran player can throw at you. A Twilight Council first, there's about a 90% chance this is for Blink, because there's no proxies anywhere. This is the staple of Protosses who want to try really hard. Because Blink requires you to continue making Stalkers, which are vulnerable but strong units, and be constantly on top of your units. You want to be out there getting in front of any medevac drops or liberators, sniping off any units you can, then blinking back. If you're not actively using your units with Blink Stalkers, you might as well have just made Immortals or Charge or something like that, which wouldn't be as good because then you're more vulnerable to harass. But if you're willing and able to be on top of these units, and you see he's continuing to make Stalkers, then you can get more cost efficiency. You can do more with less, because the Blink allows your Stalkers to stay alive in a lot of different scenarios. Right now, here we see a couple Stalkers in that wall will create one. And on this map, there's no Reaper jump area. The Reapers can't get into the main, but of course Medevacs can. And one of the most common builds on this map is a quick Medevac drop with Hellions, which can be very annoying to deal with. There's a Robo at the front. This is mostly Classic just trying to get vision. He's trying to make sure no Hellion drop comes in, no Liberator, no Widowmine drop. These things that can really annoy a Protoss early on. He's already got a shield battery up, so if it was Cyclones in the front, he sees the Hellions. But if it was Cyclones in the front, he has that basic defense so he doesn't just die. Well, 2 Cyclones and 2 Hellions. Those Hellions can be used to maybe kill probes here, but 2 Stalkers already being warped in. He made sure to get just enough Chrono Boost. Not quite as quick as those Cyclones could have come up, but Classic has the setup, he has the defenses, he has the shield battery, very importantly, and he's going to be able to deflect that. And now he knows. It's important now. There's no Observer yet, but what does Classic know? He's seen the investment in 2 Hellions and 2 Cyclones. That's 200 gas and a lot of minerals and time on a reactor into Cyclones. So that simply means there's not going to be any pressure coming up soon. With his Blink Stalkers, he can deflect, and now he has map control, because either Euthermal has to continue making Cyclones, which is a bad move, or switch into bio. Every once in a while you'll get mech, but usually bio. But because he invested in those Cyclones early, which were designed to pressure a third base, and he can deflect those, now Classic is safe to take a third, and probably add on a Forge. But the question is, now, does he really want to pressure? Does he warp in another round of Stalkers? Or does he get like a Robo-Bay and start to just turtle up some more? Does he get Sentries and maybe a Robo-Bay? Or does he get some more Stalkers and really get aggressive? I haven't seen this game. I think one of the best ways to learn is to think, what would you do in this scenario? And then you take a player much better than you, Classic, and see what they do, and see if you were anywhere close to right. So double Forge, Charge, and an Observer. And he's not using his Warpins this second. Actually, no, I take it. No, he didn't use his Warpin. So he skipped a Warpin because he knows he has map control, and is going to go for the upgrades. So he's going for the longer-term play. Alright, Charge is on the way. A Hellion. This Hellion is scouting, he knows that. He has his Stalkers spread out around looking for things like that. More gates at 48 workers. Remember that it's going to be 50 in just a second. 50 probes. A lot of pro tosses, in Korea especially, but in general. Right around 50 probes is when you want to up that gate production. That's something you can just be like, 50 probes, 6 gates. And essentially copy that. That's the wrong camera. Spoilers. Alright, he's actually adding on 5 gates. So, when do we get the Templar Archives, is the question. Because he's going for a real brute force, ground army, a lot of charge lots, Blink Stalkers and Sentries in support. When do we get the Templar Archives? Because it's pretty apparent here he's not going to go for Colossi. You don't go for this many gates, then try to go Colossi, because you don't have the minerals. And this is what I mean. Even though he doesn't have enough to really fight this, targeting down individual Marines, blinking Stalkers away, and Uthermal knows he can't chase. Actually, a Warp Prism. It looks like Classic is going to try to hit a 1-1 timing here. The only reason to make a Warp Prism instead of Immortals is because you want to attack. It looks like... Oh, and getting that pick off, so nice. But, almost a flank. Okay. He got a little greedy. He knows that. Looks like most of the Stalkers, at least half the Stalkers, going to go down, so... It wasn't free. But an Immortal's on the way, but no Templar Archives yet. At this point, Classic, he did just use a recall, so... Does he actually attack? Okay, he's just going to send the Warp Prism out. I think after losing those Stalkers, and seeing the medevacs and the unit count, he decided, yeah, I don't want to attack into that. I might be wrong. Maybe he never wanted to attack. But it did look like he was kind of shaping up to get aggressive, but lost a few too many units and kind of thought twice about it and stayed defensive. Where's the Templar? Thank you, Classic. That's the next step here. Once again, the Robo-Bay and Colossi cost too much. Drops out, hits the third. Now, notice the movements here. He dropped out on this side, just a couple Zealots. He saw the army got dragged back with this Observer. As he's going into the main and he realizes that there's nothing there to defend, he's going to get a warp in. The army's moving forward. Because he can fight if there are no units there, right? So this is all 3 things happening at once while he's getting the double upgrades and Templar Archives. I wouldn't be surprised to see a... That's a little bit of a mistake, but... to see a 4th base as well behind this. He's continuing to warp in. He's moving to the right side. Killed some SCVs. I mean, he could just go for the killing move, right? But a 4th base would also make a lot of sense. He's dragged some units back. Of course, Uthermal knows about this as well. Sees where the army isn't. The scan comes out. Oh, will he actually get that warp in? No, it got canceled. That's a big deal. Little greedy there. Classic got a little greedy. He did the phasing mode on the Warp Prism a little bit too quick. That entire warp in got canceled. You get the money back, by the way, if the warp in gets canceled. And you can re-warp them in. But obviously he's not going to have 8-9 more Zealots here, which kind of stops this attack in its tracks. He's going to go back. He's going to Chrono Boost Storm out. Is probably what we're going to see next. And Gate. What? Chrono Boost your Storm, Classic. Bring the Storm. Oh, that was a mess up there. I'm not sure exactly what happened here. How long on the recall? Recall is on cooldown for another 50 seconds. So there's the Storm. He's been building a couple of mortals here. This is actually pretty dicey, because losing the Prism means he has no longer any angles of attack. Uses the charges, pulls back up to the high ground. That was just the charges. Some players don't know. When the charge connects to a unit, it does 8 damage. So it just hitting the target, you get 2 attacks off, aka one attack with 2 swipes of the side blades, and the charge itself does damage. So you want to try to connect with as many charges as possible, and ideally live to do it again. And that's on top of the speed boost, on top of the charge itself. That's why charging is so important at the right angle. Widowmine's there. He just finished 2-2. I'm sure he realizes that. Trying to snipe. No fourth. Well, now there's a fourth. But he is manually, he's using, in order to select all of a certain type of unit, Control-Click. So it looks like what Classic is doing, because he doesn't have a hotkey just for his Stalkers. He's Control-Clicking his Stalkers to select them individually, and then blinking forward and using them to target, while the rest of the army is on a command to normally attack move. But 3-3 is on the way now. So that's a huge upgrade advantage, continuing to warp in the Templar here. He knows he just got scanned as well. So, waiting for the Observer to see if there's an army on top of that ramp. And this is an important point right now, because it's been about a minute, a little bit under a minute, since he last engaged / saw the Terran army. He realizes at this moment, when he sees there's nothing waiting for him up this ramp, the army could be like right here, or at least like on his way to the third. So he's bringing his Templar back and starting to realize, where are you? He's really looking now, and there it is. The instincts were there, but Euthermal actually evaded him. It was Classic, I think, thought an army could be going for the third. It actually went for the fourth, and that was a nice move as long as he gets those medevacs out. Oh my. 1 Templar. He recalls. Nice dodge. This is actually a good trap here. Oh, you can blink over that ledge? Wait. He recalls just a few... Wait, did he do that on purpose? I'm not sure, because he only recalled a few Templar and a couple Stalkers. I'm wondering if he... Okay, apparently you can blink over that ledge. I didn't actually know that. I don't know if he was just trying to get him to panic, but I mean, the Templar themselves can probably finish that, so... That was a very strategic recall, making sure not to bring too many units back. That'll be tied up in his main for a little bit. The thing is, for Classic, he doesn't have to end the game. He doesn't have to base trade, and he shouldn't, because he's been really focusing on upgrades this entire time. He has to lean on those upgrades, which means he needs the economy to continue warping in units. If he gets into a base trade scenario against a Terran, things like Widowmines and Liberators start to get very annoying. Alright, this drop in the back. Is he going to try to bust through, is the question. Like, honestly, most of the time, it's better to just go back and defend. If you've been focused this hard on upgrades and your 3-3 isn't in yet, he's 10 seconds out from 3-3. Does he wait to engage? It looks like almost for sure. Yeah, a couple seconds away, he glanced at it there. 10 seconds. And the armor, too. He heard that. And he'll probably try to bust through. Oh, my God. Is there a Templar in there? He's just going through it. He just has so much stopping power. These units are just... He had a 4 upgrade advantage for this fight. Thermal just finished is just finishing his +2. Storms and 4 upgrades. And then making sure he minimized the Widowmine damage and dealt with the Liberators. Let's go back. Let's go back and slow down exactly how we controlled it a little bit back. Warps in on the other side. He has his Templar, his War Prism, and then the rest of his army on a different hotkey. There's a Templar in the Prism. He sends in just a group of his Zealots there, making sure to use the Storms, blinks forward, and uses the Stalkers to target down while storming at the back. He has a Guardian Shield on. A Warp in. But he made sure to get the Storms before targeting the Liberators. Those were the priorities. But Storms, Guardian Shield, minimize Widowmine damage, Storm, Liberators, and then Warp in that order. That was how we went for that. He knows there's a counterattack on the other side, but he has far too many units now. He should win from here. You'd have to have a massive breakdown to lose to that. Yeah, the upgrades are just so good. Stats, he knew the entire time. His focus from the first pressure when he was taking a third, his focus was on the upgrades. And he just completely leaned on them. And you saw he didn't take the game-deciding engagement until about 5 seconds. Until about 5 seconds after +3/+3 completed. So he knew what he wanted. The Storms, I don't think he actually used Storm until the final engagement as well. It wasn't really a priority. That's also a more fragile way to play Protoss. Like, if Thermal wins a couple fights, then there's not the comeback potential. Because you don't have Storm or Colossi, you just have less units, and Medivacs are very good. But with the upgrades, if you're able to just take okay fights throughout the game, you can overrun them. But it's very important. If you take a bad fight, and, like, it was kind of bad when Classic lost some of his Stalkers when he had Blink, but losing 4 or 5 Stalkers isn't the end of the world. If he had lost, like, 10, even if he traded a little, then the Medivacs start flying around, Liberators start sieging up, and things go sideways. But he kept enough of the right units alive to eventually just power him down. The supplies were even before that fight, but 4 upgrades are way too much. So, also wake up people. Were you just so engrossed